I forgot what we were talking about.
I never knew what we were talking about.
And welcome to today's Geek Public panel on how to find your motivation, especially when you do not feel like doing the thing. To begin this topic, let's talk about when you have to make things and you don't especially feel like making the thing. Like, what's gonna get you up off your ass and actually make the thing when you might be overwhelmed? What are some things that you do?
I think I have a very relatable problem. If I'm doing something for myself, I almost guarantee you I'm going to put it off and I'm not going to do that thing. But when I hold obligations to others, be it in the form of commissions or just like, well, this guy has a project and I got to make sure that that's like made for them so it's in time, there's a deadline involved. When I'm beholden to someone else, it always helps me move. But even then, sometimes I have like, creative burnout where I'm just like, I don't even know how I'm going to approach this. You have to sit with it. And if it's not a prominent deadline, I force myself to try and take time, because the longer I'm away from a project, the more time I have to kind of passively think about things, kind of tinker in my head. Like, I don't fall asleep to an audiobook because I fall asleep to my head engineering something, right? So those kinds of like passive problem solvings I do in my head when I'm confused or stuck is definitely something that helps me eventually feel ready to tackle something, is just more time.
Joe?
Sometimes for me, I like to write things down and just writing like, at this time, I will start working on this thing. Even if it's just writing down what I'm doing and then outlining it, it makes me think like, okay, what can I do from there? If there's something I can't really do at that time, writing it down and giving it a specific time for it helps me get to it.
Breaking it down, getting a schedule in.
Yeah.
Eric?
Yeah. Deadlines definitely help me the most when it comes to getting things done and fighting against that sort of urge just to put it off another day. But the thing that really gets me to get up and running is when I see someone doing something as though I wasn't going to be there, sort of like a Christmas Story style thing. When I see a client, and I'm not going to name any names, when I see them go, well, Eric, if you don't get this done in time, I guess we're going to do this. I go, oh no, that's terrible. What's the most immediate thing I can do to change where the trolley, how many people is the trolley going to kill?
And how can I change the track to get more points?
So there's nothing like incompetence to help wake me up in the morning.
I think I agree, because the well of spite is bottomless.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that someone once told you can't, or the idea that someone's just fucking it up, like, immediately stirs me to immediate action.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So I was thinking of what you said about when someone tells you can't. Suddenly makes you do things. I know in one of the TTRPG games that I ran, Poison Tulips, I specifically had a mechanic in that game where I had my PCs play NPCs because someone who was a notable told me you can't do that, it will confuse the audience. And I'm like, no, I'm going to figure this out.
And it worked great.
And it worked great.
It was a good game.
Yeah, but it also required my talent to be really, really talented and be able to play a PC and then play a random NPC on the fly that I just assigned them. It's like, okay, you are now the storekeeper. Go.
Yeah, someone told you can't.
Yeah.
And I almost guarantee you any successful artist has always had someone go, you can't. And then I'm like, you just activated the challenge mode. Guess I'm going to school you. Like I said, my pit of spite, my well of which I draw my motivation is mostly spite, and it has not run out.
When you're out of spoons and you're out of mana, just dig into the spite drawer.
It's true.
Yeah.
It worked for Netflix.
They don't even send me CDs anymore.
Right, her.
So I want to ask the group, do you work better off of positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement when it comes to motivation? So the idea of I'm striving to do a thing and trying to get to a goal, or if I don't do the thing, this bad thing will happen.
On the side, I also teach gymnastics and parkour. And it's
Parkour?
Yeah.
Parkour!
Years of things. Parkour.
Parkour!
Funny thing, I was a video on that for The Office.
I love that.
Yeah, it was a thing. But on that, like, it's ingrained in me to find positive ways to support. Like, if a student's doing something, I will find, like, okay, you did a little bit better than last time. So that's where my mind immediately goes, like, okay, so I did this much this time. How did I do compared to last time? And I try to find, like, the positives to help me keep going in that direction.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a very coach mindset. And I think it's like teaching your students how to drive themselves. Also, to a point, drives you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And you're dealing with a lot of, I'm assuming you're dealing with a lot of smaller kids. So therefore you just you want to emphasize the positive. Would there be a scenario where you would have to give negative reinforcement to a child?
So that actually happened recently, where a child said they kept saying, like, I can't do this, and then I just asked them, like, is this something that you can't do, or is this something that you don't want to do? And that's a very big difference. And I was like, okay, it's fine to say you don't want to do something, but don't tell yourself you say you can't, because that's not what we allow here in this gym, kind of.
Yeah, sure.
So it's like, okay, fine. If you really think you did the best you could, that's it. We're done. We'll keep going. But if you can show me one where you do your best, then I'll be happy with that. And so I even if it is a negative, I try to spin it for them to go, okay, I want to do this better because of that.
I was talking to Ryan earlier actually about this, where I kind of stopped going the extra mile and putting in a little bit extra effort, because that little bit of extra effort goes a huge way, because it ends up in, like, positive reinforcement kind of stuff. And part of that was, like, I would guest for conventions, and I for the past few years I didn't really costume a lot. So, like, I might do, like, kind of casual wear or casual costumes, things of that nature. But I recently went to a show, and I was like, you know what? I haven't done this for a while. This is my first time at this show. Let's make a good impression. Let's go the extra mile. Let's take that little bump of effort, do the makeup, put on the armor kind of thing. And I got a ton of positive reinforcement and motivation from that, which I think, like, reminded me that taking that little bit of effort makes a statement, means a lot, makes an impression. I am affected, I mean, both by negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement. The positive reinforcement, I feel like sometimes I can lie back in and get lazy. Negative reinforcement, like deadline stuff, like if you don't get this done, something terrible will happen to you, is mostly only effective for kicking the ADHD rat in my cage. That says, it's the day before, it's due tomorrow, guess you're doing it all today. I mean, it gets done, and it gets done well. But it's still like you have activated the fight or flight chemicals in order to achieve this immediately. And it probably would have been smarter to have started earlier, but the brain don't go burr. And if the brain don't go burr, the thing not going to happen. So that deadline hits the chemical wall. It's like, yes, flood with dopamine and horror. And it's like, now I can work. Phenomenal.
For me, I have this weird idea, which I call the luxury of no choice.
Yep.
And that is usually when I do a lot of productions. At a certain day and a certain time, this event is going to happen, whether you are ready or not. There is no choice, but you must get ready. So in that way, I don't see that deadline as being a positive or negative. It's this is going to happen.
It's a reality, yeah.
It's just a reality. So in a way, a lot of my hosting gigs are literally all those luxuries of no choices. And the reason why I say luxury of no choice is because sometimes, like you, if it's just on me and it's just my own selfish goal, I feel like I could put that off another time. But if I'm having to be accountable to other people, other businesses, then I have to get that doubt out of my head in order for me to perform my job. But then when it's just on me, then I feel like, well, I'm accountable to myself, so therefore it doesn't have to be as important. But I've learned over time that you have to want the things that you want enough to give yourself deadlines.
And also there's certainly something to be said for like, you're a performer. You are, when you are doing your hosting gigs, when you're at a live event, you are performing. And when you go and do that, you are your own brand, regardless as to if you're representing a company. You're in front of an audience. And I mean, this was a huge negative form factor motivator when I was in theater, because I acted professionally for years. And it was like, cool, are you going to be the guy that makes a fool of himself on a stage? You're not. You're simply not. And that also, I mean, it reflects on your self-image. It reflects on how you feel about your performance, all that jazz. So that always, like, gives me a little oomph. It's just like, oh, no, they are watching.
Eric?
Yeah. I think traditionally a lot of how my understanding for just being a lawyer and entertainment lawyer, it is usually a fear of the negative impact. When you're writing something and shaping a deal, it is professionally and productively going through a caseload in a library of war stories and going, never again, these need to never happen. But talking, just giving that option of positive enforcement, I'm struggling to reconceptualize what law might look like at that. So could you give me some examples of what positive reinforcement is for you all in motivating? Like,
I would have figured that if you're a lawyer, if I do this job, I will make a lot of money.
I mean, that's a positive motivator.
That's a positive reinforcement, but that doesn't always motivate everybody.
Oh, money is so important in our capitalistic society, but also simultaneously means nothing to me. It's very weird. I have a very odd financial relationship.
No, I get you on that because, yes, I too need money. God, I need money. Hire me today. This is not legal advertising. That has way too many other ethics laws. Never again. I resemble a New York taxi driver in that when I reach a certain level of money in my bank account, I go, wow, I can relax now, when there's still things I need to do. And that's a bad habit.
I also have that habit.
Yeah.
100%.
Bad habit, but it is studied as a thing that many taxi drivers run into. In many undergrad economics textbooks, you can find a graph for that type of motivation pattern.
So would you say that your motivation goes down the more comfortable you are?
Yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Like there's something about resting on your laurels. Like you feel like you've done enough to warrant this rest, but
when the HP that is my bank account bar goes this way, then I'm like, shit. Suddenly you'll see me like post up 15 different props on my page, be like, who wants one?
Like, that's when the hustle starts.
That's when the hustle really
when you
begins.
hustle or freeze.
Yeah, yup.
But I've also seen too many examples in Hollywood where people rested on their laurels and felt like, I'm allowed to stay here. And their quality of life only gets worse because they're so proud of this one thing they did 10 years ago, and they can't move past that because they're comfortable with whatever they achieved in the past.
As an ex-washed up reality TV star, from almost 10 years ago now.
Just note, I'm going to put up the show link.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I didn't know about this.
Oh yeah, it's a curse of mine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Earlier when we were talking about the hunger, I have a friend who purposely made bad choices so that they could have a carrot to like motivate them.
What?
They would always want to be hungry, not literally, but like in the figurative sense of like wanting more work so that they could keep themselves moving, which is an interesting...
I kind of get that. I mean, I don't like it explicitly, but like I get the logic. The logic being like I must always be on the hustle.
Yeah.
And if I'm not motivated to hustle because I am comfortable, I must clearly remain uncomfortable.
I don't like it because what it requires is a level of self-sabotage for you to even remotely feel successful.
I definitely feel that.
I'm thinking about past projects or even like this podcast, right? Once I reach a certain like milestone or level, challenge myself, maybe I can do this topic, or maybe I can get this guest, or maybe I could reach this outlet. There's always new and different goals that you can do without feeling you have to reset yourself to zero in order to feel successful.
And if you plateau yourself during these projects, you'll get burnout, and then you'll not do any of it.
Right.
Sharks never stop swimming, right? So like always be on that hustle, but not as motivation to survive as much as it is motivation to level up what you're doing.
And there are some people who just glamorize the hustle.
Yeah.
And especially
the hustle blows.
I don't like it.
I hate it. But that's my whole life.
I know in the healthy gamer community, they have pairing two different tribes of motivation style. One is being very fear-based, which sounds like what we're sort of talking about with the needing to stay hungry to hustle. And
the Machiavellian capitalistic mindset.
Yeah. And juxtaposing it with another alternative that sort of they encourage people to find, which is to tap into your curiosity towards something and the desire to explore
wanting
games.
to level up to
exactly what Ryan just said. And I mean, I think that's huge because especially in any trade where you're putting yourself out there, it's not necessarily straight up a 9 to 5. It's some kind of creative endeavor. There's always something to be innovated or learned or whatever. Much of our trades are actually generationally passed down knowledge. Even if we learned it by just watching someone else or explicitly taught how to do it, there is still always someone else to learn from, another perspective, another way to bring the game face and learn something new and add that and implement that into what you're doing.
How would you go about achieving a goal that in your head feels like a mountain or is difficult to achieve? So I want to use an example that several people will use. We're in Hollywood, and a lot of people will say, I want to be an actor. People will move out here to be actors, but many times they don't really know what they want, or they don't know how to define what that is.
Or the reality of the situation.
Or the reality
of the industry itself. Being an actor sucks. It's very difficult.
There's a lot of competition, and you have to put yourself into situations where you may not be comfortable with, and you have to figure out what kind of person you want to be.
The most inhumane job interview in the world is called an audition.
So I'm going to go on the opposite end of that. And that is, if you want to be a successful actor, you have to love auditions. Because if you get the roles, that's the bonus. But they fantasize sometimes about being popular, being beloved, walking down the red carpet. They think about all the rewards without thinking about the actual work.
The hustle.
And if you cannot imagine yourself liking the work, then you can't realistically get to your goal.
Correct. And I mean, I think that's a perfect reflection of many of our industries. Like, cool, I get to wear cool costumes and armor. Well, if I don't have a crap ton of money to throw at somebody, I gotta make it. Okay, so I gotta learn how to make it. Okay, so I gotta learn how to do leather working. I gotta learn how to carve foam. I'm fortunate enough to have had people to learn from. And then I got to watch them and how they motivate themselves, how they get up in the morning kind of stuff.
Emulation definitely is the path to becoming that person. Like, if you want to be a professional in industry, look at the professionals in that industry and see what they're doing. But with the caveat of what they did at that time may not work now. That's a big thing.
That's super correct. But it's,
you have to be adaptable.
I think it's more about looking at, okay, if this person is someone in the industry who's doing the thing, they might be trash in other parts of their life. But understand what motivates them and what's working for them, and take the good and I leave behind the bad, because there's a reason we say don't meet your heroes. I know many people who would be considered heroes who are awesome. I know the other side as well. Everyone still has a way they function and a way they operate that has led them to an amount of success. And looking at that and going, oh, I think that could work for me. Or maybe it won't, but it's not bad to try it.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing that you mentioned, which was super important, was that when you were talking about being a prop maker, you went backwards from being a prop maker to learning to carve foam.
No, you start the basics.
You start with the basics, and I think a lot of people lose motivation because in their brain they don't think about the basics that they could start with, the things that are actionables. Like, I can learn to do this. So, like, let's say, for example, someone wanted to be an actor. Well, I can learn to read lines. I can learn to watch other people's performances. Who do I like as a performer? Why don't I try emulating that? Why don't I take classes? Why don't I try community theater?
And it's the difference between like listening and active listening. Am I watching a movie for entertainment, or am I dissecting a performance? People have to take that conscious effort though. And that's often like, I don't want to work while I watch a movie. I'm watching a movie. But if you want to be an actor, you're gonna have to learn. You're gonna have to do that. It's like one of the things I talk about in a lot of my panels, is like when I'm talking about prop making 101 kind of stuff, is like, cool, go to Harbor Freight, invest $10 whole in some floor mat foam, grab a crappy rotary tool or a cheap Dremel, and go to town. Learn how to use it. Low investment, see if you like it, move from there. The lower investment threshold, the more accessibility, the more likely someone is to start teaching themselves and learning. If I was to do a prop panel and be like, yeah, you need a laser cutter. I'm sorry, no one's going to start making props out of that panel. Like, take this $10,000 investment.
And it's not advisable because, okay, they buy the $10,000 investment and they decide after the first cut, they don't,
this is
it doesn't jive. Oh, no, now you're stuck trying to sell something for...
And that's one of the things I definitely am like, always start as bottom rung as you can and build up from there. And I mean, when I did it, I wasn't even consciously thinking about it. I was just like, well, I gotta start trying to make cool stuff. And like, I shot a little higher than I should have, but biting off more than you can chew isn't a bad thing.
So what's an example of a goal that might have been insurmountable to you in the beginning, and then you felt like you've achieved a certain level of it? And it doesn't have to be career. It could just be, I wanted to learn dancing. I wanted to learn to be a better dungeon master. It could be anything of that stripe.
In a video game, I tried to fight a boss that I could not beat. So I grinded for like hours.
You're playing Elden Ring.
That is a thing. Like, the cool thing about Elden Ring is if you can't make it one way, try something else and then make your way back. And I feel like that has stuck with me for a lot of things. If you can't do the big thing at first, grind the small stuff until...
Get your XP.
Exactly. Until you get enough to do the big boss and finally beat it, and then go, that was it.
One of the things that happens with me a lot is I will get like an engineering problem, right? Like, how do you put like LEDs into like your sword prop kind of thing? And like engineering issues, like structural integrity, things like that. Like, it has to be combat safe for like contact. And I always like, I just have to sit with it. I just have to let it chill. And I have to keep coming at it from different sides. And I also, when I'm stumped like that and I think something is insurmountable, I immediately go talk to all my other maker friends. I'm like, I have this really dumb issue. What are your thoughts on it? And they're like, wow, that's a dumb issue. You shouldn't do that. I'm like, I don't care. It's happening. What are your thoughts? And I get a sounding board. And I get to have a back and forth about how I would tackle this issue with different perspectives, because I'm only going to think, how many ways? So if I have other people involved in that conversation, I get to have a back and forth, and I get those other perspectives, and then I can apply them. Or they're terrible ideas, and I never do them. What do I have to lose?
Sometimes it helps to know what you don't want to do.
Very correct.
For you to figure out what you want to do.
But some days you're just like, wow, that's a dumb way to do that. But you know what? Actually, it's working. So I guess it's happening. And I mean, I've run into that a lot. I'm like, that shouldn't work. That's dumb. I guess I'm doing it now.
Now, does that fall under sort of our spite model of doing things? just
a little
tying
bit.
it back? No, because I'm thinking about that, and I agree with it. The thing that helps me, like when I have a goal of, okay, I know that this agreement is going to be 25 pages long, and I'm sitting at blank page number 1. The easiest way to kick me into gear is just look at Legal Rocket or one of those places.
Oh God, a boilerplate.
The boilerplate templates that most people start with. You look at that, and when I look at this and go, oh no, I could write this I could write this better.
Yep.
Even when
There's
I'm
the
asleep.
spite.
Then there's the spite. It wells up, and then I just do what's known as sort of insufficient actions. It's just I take an action, I block it out of my time. I'm going to spend 15 minutes just making this template better, and after that, I'm going to go play some games.
Yeah.
I will have had that sort of success and the positive feeling of it's way better than that incompetent version.
In the back of your head, you just hear, do it.
Yeah. See, my previous boss, he would send me that meme.
Yeah, there you go.
And it didn't work for me. I think that, that
it ruined it for you.
Yeah,
that's
Sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. The Sith metaphors doesn't always work.
Of motivation.
Yeah,
the Sith school. The rule of two.
Yeah, I mean the rule of two. It's fascinating to try to build a workplace environment around that, but that's another story about HR and sort of their lack of.
HR really blows. Honestly.
So, question: I don't know what the rule of two is.
Every master has one apprentice, and when the apprentice is ready to become a master, they have to get rid of the master in order to take an apprentice, and there can only be two.
Yep, rule of two.
Yep.
Oh,
That's how they ensure the strength and purity of the Sith power.
Which, by the way, terrible motivator. I don't want to teach this guy.
Yeah.
He's going to kill me later.
Uh-huh.
Nah.
Gonna take all my hours.
This is why he's gonna take all my hours. This is why I am part of, the Revan cult, if you would.
Yeah.
I'm a big Revan stan.
But I can see where you are enamored by power. You always want power to be the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Like, if I am unable to be the best, then I want the one that is the best to be one that learned from me.
Yeah, that's not selfish enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like myself more than them.
You want to be the very best, the best that ever was?
That no one ever was.
That no one ever was.
Okay, that would be an interesting Pokemon Black 3. A Pokemon Master and the Pokemon Apprentice.
Oh, no.
I am always motivated by Pikachu with a red lightsaber. He already uses Force Lightning.
Question for the panel. What's something that you did not expect motivates you like heck to do a certain thing? I can give a context example. I am weirdly extroverted introvert, so I like smaller crowds, but I like going out. The opportunity to meet new people, to potentially work on projects together, is often the reason why I will go out to a party to potentially network. And I'm not going to like a networking party. I might be going to a friend's birthday party or like some kind of social event. I'm not trying to do it to get gigs, but I love to see what other people are working on and then potentially collaborating with them. It's like, hey, let's work on this together and seeing where that goes.
I have a lot of that when I do conventions. Like,
conventions are great for this.
I often walk away from a convention inspired in some way or another by other people's work and their passion. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty much dead inside. But like, I look at them and they have life in their eyes, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that's like.
So you just consume their brains.
No, their joy.
You consume their joy.
Yeah.
Like a solar panel, but for inspiration.
Yeah. I'm inspired by their joy and their passion, and unfortunately, it doesn't take it away from them, because if I could just be a rainy cloud for everyone, man. One of the things that I didn't expect to motivate me, which is when other people in my life are having a really hard time and I feel powerless to help.
Oh, wow.
If I feel powerless to help someone, I am immediately motivated to work. I am driven to action, which ruins my brand of trying to tell all of you I'm a terrible person. So don't tell anyone.
Don't worry, you are a terrible person.
Thank you.
Yeah, your secret is safe with us.
Thank you. I appreciate your commitment to the bit. And honestly, the protection of my brand.
Yeah.
Yes. Branding's important. Sometimes some of us are triggered by emergency response.
Yeah,
Correct.
Definitely.
Because if we're suddenly in emergency mode, we stop overthinking that we can't do it because it's not useful.
One of the reasons why like ADHD people are like super good in a crisis is because suddenly all the loud thoughts are gone because the important thing is right in front of you, and now that is your hyper focus. You are the one with a clear head, and you know what to do, and you are spurred to action. It's definitely kind of an abuse of my brain chemistry, right? But it works.
Is it abuse, or is it like learning how to use what you've got?
A little bit of both. You're right. I don't think abuse is the correct word for it.
But like kind of
loadout. Yeah, the exploitation, the like, game mechanic.
Yeah, you have a higher jump. So your strategy is going to use a lot more jumps.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas we were talking, it comes to mind like there's the concept of identity. You see yourself as this person that does this. So therefore, when it comes to certain actions, you act on them for that. That is a way for people to motivate themselves, because you can go like, oh, I don't want to be the person that doesn't do this. I want to be the person that does this.
So do you think identity contributes to your motivation, or your motivation contributes to your identity?
I can see both, yeah.
So how would each look different?
Well, okay, so like imagine, people say this a lot with acting. If you can't do, you teach. And that's kind of a negative connotation.
That's horrible.
No, but people say it all the damn time.
We love teachers on this show.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point being, but that still can motivate someone like, I don't want to go do that because then I feel like that's going to be said about me. So I must continue to do.
I can also see a way of teaching it to someone to see how they do it, so you can learn from them to do it as a way of seeing a fresh perspective.
The feedback loop of learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something I always had. Like, whenever I was, like, apprenticing with someone, we would end up swapping particular, like, trade secret-esque shaped things, or, like, tips and tricks. I have a really dumb way of doing this thing. You have a really dumb way of doing this thing. Let's both learn each other's dumb ways of doing this thing.
Yeah.
That shouldn't work.
But also in that vein of teaching, mentoring people is some of the best ways I've learned things from other people, because it does have a combination of being able to lend my knowledge, but also not having that ego of saying, I know everything, especially when you are receptive to learning from how someone else does their thing. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Okay, I now have a new skill set as I learn from someone who I am going to teach things.
When you're teaching something as well, you have to go back yourself.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
I think that's one of the biggest parts. Besides learning from how the student is learning, is also you have to go back to basics and remember your step by step.
Absolutely.
Right.
I also find that when you become a teacher to someone, it motivates you to be someone that they can emulate to be better in that field.
You role model.
Yeah, which helps you develop you better.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you want to be the example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you also often, and I know this is going to resonate with some of us, we would like to be the example that we needed when we were younger.
It's huge. It's so huge.
I love that. Before we conclude things, I want to ask each of the panelists, what is one tip that you would give to someone who feels like they need inspiration or motivation? I'm going to start off with Tobias, because you're very articulate.
Thank you. I would say, as a tip, if you are in need of motivation, would be to reach out to your community. And if you don't have one, find one. All of these creative endeavors are not easy, and we all face very similar challenges. And if you don't have a group of friends or a community of makers or something like that, they exist. Even if you find a random one on the internet, sometimes they're pretty cool. You get to talk shop. You get to talk about your motivations, and you get to talk about the struggles. If you find like a really cool maker or something like that, which I have reached out to random makers and we've talked shop, and it was great. But finding people in your field, connecting with them, and having a conversation will always help you.
Nice. Joe?
Don't be afraid to take whatever steps you need to take. I'm a big fan of habit formation. Like, say it's like you want to be a better drawing person. Just start drawing. Even if you don't feel like inspired, just starting it out. Even if I don't want to, I'm just going to do like a doodle or something. And then sometimes you'll find as you're doing it, you'll get inspired to go beyond like just doing something small. Like be like, oh, what if I tried this thing? It's like starting to walk until you find something in the walk that like helps you keep moving forward.
Can I add just a little bit to that?
Of course.
Don't be afraid to fail.
That's a huge one too.
Yes.
Biggest thing.
Like that, I mean, that's kind of what you're getting at is don't be afraid to fail. You have to fail, and you will fail in order to learn more. Like,
Yes.
that's just part of the process. Accept it now.
You learn to optimize so many things. I'm thinking in the video game context, but you learn the most by trying the stupid thing and then realizing sort of how to cut it the difference and optimize that way.
It's like AI, but real I.
Yeah.
Actual intelligence.
Yeah.
My next AI company is Actual Intelligence.
Actual intelligence. God.
Anyone takes that, I'm finding you.
We'll trademark it too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, we could do that. Listen, you got a lawyer here, so that's
Hell yeah.
I'm not your lawyer, but I don't know, Tobias, you need a lawyer. Yes,
Legal disclaimer.
Give me a
here.
minute.
Yeah, legal disclaimer. I'm not your lawyer.
Yo, it's for the merch.
Oh, it's for the merch. There we go.
Merch.
Yeah.
You're the merch lawyer.
Yeah, the merch lawyer.
For all the merch we're going to have.
Yeah, there's the merchants of Venice, and there's the merchants for lawyers. Wait, lawyers for merch.
We're doing great, sweetie.
We'll fix it in post. My tip would be going to looking at someone do something and just doing it a little bit better. Use ChatGPT. Ask it to do something. If you're so afraid that AI is gonna replace you, call its bluff. Ask it to do the thing for you and make it a little better. I think you're gonna find the magic of how you can't be replaced if that's the thing that you're fighting in motivation that day, and you might learn something new.
I have used it as a learning tool.
Yeah.
I guess my piece of advice, one thing that people don't think about is that make sure the thing that you want is actually the thing that you want, not that others want you to do for their approval.
That's
Because
a good one.
if you don't actually want that thing, then that motivation to actually do the thing isn't going to be there. And you'll realize, oh, I wanted to do this because other people will like me. And that often sometimes can motivate people. But generally, if you have an internal drive, it doesn't get you all the way there. The other thing is to always be specific in your goals so that your tasks are attainable. So going back to the actor example, instead of saying, I want to be an actor, think about, I should try to do at least one audition a week.
Yeah.
Or I should submit
Something
to
like that.
one thing. Otherwise, in your brain, you will never get there because you're thinking way too big when the actual thing that you might want to do could be small and attainable. And once you get that small success, now I could go on to the next steps. And then all the steps can progress for you to achieve your goal.
And you don't have to write all those steps down at once either. Like,
Yeah.
like do your bite size. You don't have to be like, do one audition, get cast in 5 things, get 18 callbacks. Bam, 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 bam. You literally just start with that small, an audition a week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which is, by the way, very kind. I think you mean like 4.
But I also know that there are too many people, like I used to work in casting, and the moment an actor gets a line in a project, they refuse to do extra work because they're thinking, oh, I'm at this level. I should not go back down.
No, you're not good enough. It's okay. Do the work of everyone that is willing to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I say you're not good enough, I mean, like, what I'm saying is, like, you're not too good for it.
You're not too.
You're not, yeah.
Exactly.
Like,
Don't be too
like
good for it.
we've all done our time, sure, no matter your success level.
Going back into sort of video game thinking, it's like, yeah, if I can't do well in the current level, just go back and replay previous levels. Go do more basic assignments until you realize I really did outgrow some of this stuff. Let me go back to the things that, the challenging content.
Yeah.
It'll be there waiting for you when you're ready.
Right. And I know so many people get worried about, well, if I go back down, then everyone will judge me. It's like, listen, like those people shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
They're not helping you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt to be seen more. It does if you go back and do something quote unquote lower, right?
Yeah.
You're still doing something. You're not resting on your laurals.
Yeah.
You're still on a bit of a hustle. You are being active and proactive about achieving whatever you want to do. And that is very commendable. It's hard.
Yeah. I think they call it like sharpening your axe.
Yeah.
Where you, as long as you're working on refining your craft, you're always making the next thing you're doing better. Even if it's not as big of a job, you're always improving the baseline. You're more reliable doing that craft.
Yep. What is it? Your 10,000 hours or whatever?
10,000 hours to be a master at something?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't believe that for a minute. But
No, and there's a really cool TED Talk about 10,000 hours is sort of to be an expert in your craft, but it only takes like 48 to be in that
Proficient?
top 80%
Yeah.
of like, you can be pretty darn good at
48
it.
hours of playing time in a lot of video games free. I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Except Stellaris. If it's a 4X game, I'm boned.
Oh, yeah, no. Stellaris Euro games, no, forget
Yeah, give me
about
500 hours, which I now have, and now I can almost play online with other people.
it. Yeah.
What we transfer it to video game terms. Going to others helps you power level.
Yep.
That makes it easier.
Yep,
you
it's
don't
true.
you don't have to spend as many hours learning the mistakes.
If you've
that
got
they
the
learned.
referral code,
Yeah.
even better.
Yeah.
Repeatable and daily quests are
Yes.
important.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a good one.
I know a lot of people with ADHD go, oh, it's a repeatable quest. I don't need it. It doesn't feel like it's going to be enough progress to
Yeah.
invest time in.
Oh no, I'm real
No,
bad.
no,
at,
yeah.
I'm bad at the repeatables.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, skill trees.
yeah.
Make sure that you're making good choices with your skill tree experience, because you can put your experience in a lot of things, but if it's not in the tree in the direction where you want to go, you're not going to go very far. That's something that I know from people. They'll dabble in a lot of things, but they won't go the next level for the thing that they want.
Oh yeah, as a jack of all trades, yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
Like I picked a couple specialization perks, but like mostly I'm spread pretty thin.
But that gives you party skills, like
Yeah, versatility.
yes,
Yes.
versatility, which is handy.
Yeah, I know for me, like for the longest time, I was on the producer track, and I wish to perform because it's something that I just kind of love to do. I want to be able to do all the things, but if I spent most of my skill tree producing and don't attempt to do any performing, how would anyone know to even have me as a performer? They're not going to suddenly go to you because you've never actually.
You're behind the scene.
Yeah, you're behind the scenes. So
Visibility is important.
yeah, visibility is important. So is diversifying your skills, because sometimes in learning to performing, you're like, oh, now I could take that information back to
That's definitely
producing.
good
So having a
to learn.
variety of skills like helps you improve overall.
Yeah.
So make great party tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
that connects you to people, and people will connect you to things.
And people are power leveling.
Yes, people are power level.
it feels like we've almost
like
created
that's
sort of a Christmas tree shape of sort of the skill tree. It's like you really do want to go and peak in one thing.
You gotta have
skills.
different ornaments.
Yeah.
From different
Especially-
Hallmark IPs.
In
Yeah.
industries where it relies on a lot of different skill sets, having a little bit of skill sets in all of those industry like parts of it will give you a better base.
Right. You cannot, everyone cannot be the angel with the Christmas trees shoved up their butt.
Yeah.
Darn.
But when we all work together, we can lift up the stars. Yeah.
We can lift up,
lift up
right
the
up,
stars.
right up to the, yeah.
stars. Right up an angel's anus.
But
All right. Well, I'm glad we all have that visual, and
Yeah.
I hope that makes the cut.
Yeah, let's okay, everyone. We're just all
right up
doing
the-
this.
right up the
Right up the
butt.
butthole.
Right up the butt.
Right up the butt.